When it comes to debt recovery, Europe can be a bit of a mystery. You may be asking yourself, what are the best ways to collect a debt in Europe? What are the customs and procedures in different countries? And what should I do if I have a debt in Europe? Don't worry, we're here to help. Understand the European debt collection landscape. First, debt collection is taken very seriously in Europe. There are a number of regulations in place to protect both consumers and creditors, and violating these can result in significant penalties. Second, the process of debt collection can be complex and time-consuming. There are a number of steps that need to be followed in order to ensure that the debt is collected in a legal and efficient manner. Third, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to debt collection in Europe. The best way to collect a debt will vary from country to country, and even from region to region within a country. Debt collection laws in Europe differ from country to country, and these laws often change over time. It is important to stay up to date on the latest laws and regulations, as well as any recent decisions by the European Court of Justice. In addition to understanding the legal framework, those engaged in debt collection in Europe must be familiar with the local culture and customs. Different European countries often have different attitudes towards debt, and the strategies and tactics used in one country may not be effective in another. Finally, it is important to be aware of the various options available for debt collection in Europe. Different countries may have different systems in place, such as pre-legal debt collection, legal debt collection, or even net enforcement. Overall, debt collection in Europe is a complex process and requires an in-depth understanding of the local legal and cultural landscape. Identify which countries should take precedence. First, you need to identify which countries should take precedence. There are a few factors that come into play here: the size of the debt, the relationship between the debtor and creditor countries, and the status of the debtor country. If you have a large debt with a creditor country that is smaller than yours, then your country's government will take precedence. This is because the government wants to protect its own interests. However, if you have a large debt with a creditor country that is of equal size or larger than yours, then both countries will likely take mutual precedence. Likewise, if the debtor country is in the process of economic recovery, then debt recovery in that particular country should take precedence over other countries. This is because the country will be able to make a full recovery more quickly if its debts are paid in full, rather than spread out over a number of years. Additionally, certain countries are more prone to disputes over debt recovery, and should be given greater priority when it comes to debt recovery. This is because disputes often result in lengthy delays and costly litigation, and resolving the dispute quickly is critical to successful debt recovery. Fortunately, taking proactive steps such as encouraging the implementation of efficient debt collection systems can help minimize future disputes and expedite debt recovery. Finally, it is important to recognize that debt recovery can often be a long and complex process. Therefore, debt collectors will need to continually monitor the situation, and should have access to the most up-to-date information in order to make informed decisions. Establish a clear and transparent collection strategy. This will help you keep your customers informed of the steps you're taking and avoid any confusion or misinformation. Your strategy should also be tailored to the specific laws and regulations of the countries in which you're doing business. If you're not familiar with the legal system in a particular country, you may want to consider working with a third-party provider who is. Another important factor to consider is the type of debt you're dealing with. Different kinds of debts require different approaches when it comes to collection, so it's important to assess the type of debt you're dealing with and create a tailored strategy for it. Depending on the country, there may be statutory periods by which you must collect the debt, so it's important to be aware of these in advance. Utilize local resources to achieve optimal results. For example, in the UK, debt collectors have access to the County Court Judgment (CCJ) system, which allows them to contact debtors directly and pursue repayment from them. In other countries such as France and Germany, you may need to enlist the help of a local law firm that is familiar with the relevant legal framework for collecting debts. Additionally, you may find that mediation or arbitration can provide an added layer of protection while helping parties involved come to an agreement. Make sure your documentation is in order. When it comes to successful debt recovery, proper documentation is key. Set up clear contracts with your debtors, outlining the payment terms, interest rates, and penalties for late payments. Not only will these make it easier to get your payments on time, but they also provide legal protection if the situation does go south. And make sure you have everything you need before you start to be successful in debt collection in Europe. You all need a valid power of attorney that allows you to act on behalf of the creditor. Explore different forms of debt recovery methods. When it comes to recovering your debts in Europe, there are a few different methods you can explore. One is using the court system, which can be a lengthy and sometimes expensive process. Finally, you could also work with debt collection agencies that specialize in this type of thing. When it comes to how you plan to collect your debt, you might consider a combination of tactics. For example, you could send out reminder letters to debtors or contact them by phone. In some cases, a face-to-face visit might be necessary. You can also try to leverage social media to your advantage, which can be an effective way to put pressure on debtors to pay their debts quickly. Another tactic that can be used is to get courts involved in debt collection, which may be a more effective way of recovering your debt. Court rulings and judgments can be used to garnish wages, seize assets, and take other steps to recover the debt. Of course, going this route is more costly and time-consuming, so you should check to make sure it's worth the effort compared to other methods you could use. Finally, another tactic you could use is to provide incentives to debtors to pay off their debt. This could include discounts, installment plans, or even incentives for paying off balances quickly. All of these options will depend on the type of debt and amount owed, so research this option to see if it's one worth considering. Conclusion. So, how do you go about recovering a debt in Europe? First, you need to make sure you have the right documentation in order. This includes the contract or agreement between you and the debtor, as well as any relevant invoices or proofs of payment. Finally, it's important to stay professional and courteous at all times. Dealing with debt collection can be stressful for the debtor, so it's important to be understanding and patient. However, you also need to be firm and make it clear that you're serious about getting the debt paid. Contact our debt collection agency today if you need help with any debt collection situation. Intercall can help you quickly.